Alrighty, it is time for Found Footage Friday once again. So today we're going to talk about one that's a little bit different, one that's kind of a hard watch. In the same vein that I don't know. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'll just get into it. But today we are going to be talking about Lucifer Valentine's Black Metal Veins. Sorry, I should have turned it that way. So I'm just mainly talking about this movie because I'm borrowing it from a friend of mine. I don't own this yet. I plan to get it, at some point, but it's kind of expensive. Or it was anyway. I haven't looked in a while. But I'm just borrowing this, so I'm talking about it while I have it. But Black Metal Veins, like I said, this is directed by directed by Lucifer Valentine, who directed this. I guess is most famous for the Vomit Gore trilogy, which is that's, I guess you'd call it vomit torture porn. I have not seen those movies. I've heard of them, but it's very extreme horror film. Something along the lines of like August Underground Mortem. Something like that. Just very visceral, very disgusting, very nasty. Just very just nasty films, Guinea Pig, American Guinea Pig, movies like that. I'll talk about those one day too, because I like the extreme horror, as well. I don't like to watch them necessarily, but like every now and then I'll put them on just if I want to watch something just over the top, because sometimes you just need, you need something like that. You need something just awful. But anyway, we'll get on to that, at another time. So anyway, Black Metal Veins, this movie came out in 2012. It is a mockumentary style film, I guess you could even say a documentary. It basically follows a group of people who are just heroin and crack junkies, basically, is what's going on. It is very, 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 very realistic, to the point where I'm sure that the people in the movie are actually doing drugs. I'm not 100%. I've never done heroin, and I've never been around heroin. I've been around, plenty of drugs before, but, I've not been around heroin or crack or methamphetamine. I've never been around any of them personally, that I'm aware of anyway. But this movie is very realistic in that aspect. So there are some things that do happen in this movie that are quote-unquote real, and I'm not going to spoil anything. If you've read about it, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I don't think that everything in this movie was real. I don't truly believe that. I think that was just the Blair Witch Project, kind of marketing where, they really marketed it as real. But a lot of the stuff in the movie, I do, believe is real. There's things that can't really be faked in this. Again, I'm not talking about just the drug use, but I'm talking about the mainly the after effects, I guess, on the people's body and stuff like that. But I'll say another thing too. Excuse me. This movie is very short. I want to say it's like an hour and 10 or an hour and 20 minutes. It's very short. But in the same way that August Underground does this to me too, this movie feels like it's 3 weeks long. Like, it feels like you're watching this movie for so long. It is such a serious, like, very kind of, like, you're just watching it like, holy crap, like, what the hell, it's a hard watch, especially, I feel like if you're someone who was in a situation like that and you came from that, I'd feel like it would be very difficult, or maybe it's very enlightening to watch. I could see that too, which brings me to my next point is I actually think this movie, it's a very important film. I think that movies like this actually serve a really good purpose. I think that they are a very good, kind of unbiased way to look at drugs and see the effects of drugs on people's life. Kind of like Trainspotting, or Requiem for a Dream. Those movies also for me are very hard to watch and very difficult to get through. And Spun, that's another one. That movie's more funny than anything, but it is still very, at the end of the day, it is very depressing. Those are all very depressing movies, but I find them to be very important and very, that's what keeps me away from the drugs, is seeing other people go through it. Again, and that's what helps about this movie, is it's very unbiased. It's just, here's what it is, here's what they're doing, this is what's going on. I mean, it's literally like if a whole bunch of people were doing heroin and crack in my living room, and I just picked this camera up and walked in there and filmed them. That's basically what you get from this movie. It is just that. It is what it is. And like I said, I think it's a very important film, in that aspect. I think it's a great subjective, way to look at it, to look at these kind of things and see kind of what it does and what your life can lead to and what your life can become. Now, I'm not talking down on anybody for living like this. I do not condone drug use. I have no problem with like weed. I've got no issue with weed at all. But I honestly, the biggest thing that I disapprove of, honestly, is alcohol. I think alcohol is the most dangerous drug that's ever existed. Mainly just because it's legal and a lot of other reasons. But we won't get into that here. But alcohol has led to many terrible things in my life. So, I definitely think it's probably the most dangerous. And, But anyway, story for another time. Heroin's pretty rough, too. Like I said, I don't disown you, and I don't hate you, and I don't think you're a bad person because of... And if you're clean, I hope, good job. Right on. Hell yes. And I understand, because believe me, if I was in this situation, that's the only reason I don't try any of these drugs, is because I'd like them. It's just like on Anchorman when they're like, oh, they're smoking crack, and they're like, oh my God, they're loving it, and they're like, of course they love it. It's crack. You know what I mean? So like, I don't shame anybody for any of that, by any means. I won't shame you, even if you are, if you were sitting right in front of me doing heroin and stuff, and you were like, I'm not gonna, I'll tell you what I think, but I'm not gonna be the one that, I'm not going to stop you, unless it's my wife, or anything like that, but, you're a grown ass man. You can do whatever you want. I've had a lot of friends that I've had to be that way with, and it sucks. But, so like I said, this movie, it's a very hard watch. It brings up a lot of things, especially if you've been around, drugs. Like I said, I've never been around these drugs in particular, but if it brings up certain things, it can bring up certain emotions and certain feelings and things like that, watching it. Because again, it's a very unbiased view. But again, I think it's very, very important. So I'm going to rate this movie, I think I'll do it right down the middle. I'm going to do a 3 out of 5 just because I don't enjoy this movie. I don't enjoy watching it at all. I get no pleasure out of watching this whatsoever. But it honestly is like kind of like I think it could be like a wake-up call for some people, or it's a good deterrent, I guess. So I think that this movie is very important in that aspect. I think it's a very unbiased way to look at the drug, you know what I mean, or to look at that lifestyle. And again, I'm not shaming anyone, and I'm not looking down on anyone at all, and speaking ill of anyone. But and they're not really either. They're not saying that. Look, they're not saying look how awful this is, or this is what your teeth are going to look. They're not necessarily talking down. Actually, the junkies are talking down on it more than what the actual filmmakers are doing. They're literally the director is literally just filming these people go throughout their day-to-day life, pretty much, and it just leads to some crazy stuff. So think of this, I guess, as the extreme Train Spotting, in a way, and maybe we'll talk about that movie one day too, because I think drugs, drug movies are just as much of a horror movie as a slasher, to me, especially depicted in this light right here. But I will say this movie, one of the saving graces of it is if you like black metal, which I'm not a huge, I'm definitely not a big black metal person by any means, but, if you like black metal, there's some pretty good damn black metal music in this, some classics for sure, in the black metal community. Again, not really my thing, but if it's your thing, you'll at least enjoy the music. And if you like heroin, hell, maybe you'll enjoy watching people get fucked up on heroin. I mean, I don't care. Watch this movie, don't watch it, whatever have you. But all I'm saying is if if you're sensitive to things like that, just beware. So, but I do think it's an important watch. Anyway, I've said all I have to say about that. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this episode of... I was about to say this episode of Black Metal Veins. That's what I'm going to call it now. Thank you for watching this episode of Found Footage Friday. I hope everyone stays safe and stays away from drugs. And you guys have a great rest of your life and a great rest of your day. So, goodbye.